what would be worse, to be stuck and know you can't leave, or to know you have an option, but that option's equally as terrifying?
I don't know. I'm tempted. I think the Event Horizon really nailed it. I want to just go with being on the Event Horizon is worse.
All right.
I feel like when you give me a choice, you give me a chance to step up and be brave. And I feel like the people on the Event Horizon didn't have that choice.
Oh yeah, they were. I mean, they did the best they could. So are we
But
saying,
like, even if you give someone insurmountable odds, if you give them options, they can do something from which they can draw inspiration. Everything felt hopeless in this movie.
Yeah, you're right.
To me.
So we got Event Horizon, Clown Car, Shining Boat.
So I do have one thing. It's not a scenario where you're in a vessel though, and that was just, this movie reminds me a lot of components of Hellraiser, and then Hellraiser 1 and 2. In the first one it's Frank, and in the second movie it's Julia, the woman who was helping Frank in the first movie. When they get their victims to come back from hell, and they are these skinless, weakened ghouls, they get you by like jamming their hand in the back of your neck and then kind of like sucking out all of your essence and fluids while you're alive to reconstitute their bodies. And that strikes me as the most horrible, creepy thing. It's just that will only last 2 minutes of your life. Whereas the Clown Car, the Ghost Ship, the Event Horizon, those are voyages that you are stuck on. You don't get an easy out after 2 horribly painful minutes.
I think the creepiest world for me is knowing that stupid troll from Ernest Scared Stupid's hunting me down in a dark school, right?
And all your Miak is at home.
Yep, all my Miak's at home. It's a dark, locked school, and I have that troll chasing me around, using different voices. I mean, I just got goosebumps.
That troll was strong. I mean, he was tough. Like, you can't box him. You can't Krav Maga him.
I literally just got goosebumps talking about that.
If you break his nose, he has a whole nother nose.
I mean, it's a huge nose.
And it's like a twin nose.
And there's a lot of snot. So, when people put Vaseline on your face when you're boxing, like he has snot on his face.
If you punch him and break his nose and you split open your knuckle and you get snot on it, you'll get an infection and die.
Yes. Ernest hit him with a truck, and he wasn't bothered by it.
Didn't he like lift the truck off of him?
He pulled the truck. Oh, he just got run over. Then he pulled the truck.
Oh. That was a tough troll. All right, that troll was like Vin Diesel in Fast and the Furious 26 tough. He was like the last witch hunter tough, where he can never die.
The hair on the back of my neck is standing up right now.
Because I mentioned Vin Diesel.
Well, no,
Vin Diesel is that troll.
He's basically Superman in Fast and Furious 26.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I love these movies and all, but all right. Our second question comes from the Fear Merchant, also on Twitter. Fear Merchant asks, this is kind of a twin question. How do you rate Sam Neill's dad bod, and how do you rate Lawrence Fishburne before he became Lawrence Fried Fishburne?
First and foremost, Sam Neill was 50 years old when he made this movie. He owns a winery, and whenever he went out with the cast and crew, he and his wife were always the last people to shut it down. I heard this all from the commentary. So if I'm 50 years old, I own a winery, and I close bars down, I would be happy to look like Sam Neill at 50 years old.
So this kind of shocked me. I don't think Sam Neill has a dad bod. And
no.
You can tell, by the way, that he is sucking in a little bit, but there's not a lot for him to suck in. Like you see him from behind, you can't suck in sideways. Like, you see how narrow his waist gets. I mean, he's just sucking it in, I think, because he also shaved his whole chest like Charlie Sheen did in The Arrival. So clearly he was proud of the shape he was in at his age. But I mean, I don't call that a dad bod.
Nah, that dude's 50. That's not dad bod. That's good. Like, if I look
that's
like
a dad
that
bod
50,
if you're 20. If you're 26, that's a dad bod.
Yeah, if I look like that when I'm 50, I am very happy.
And then the Lawrence Fried Fishburne, I feel a little badly here. I mean, yeah, Lawrence.
It's harsh. It's harsh.
And I've heard this term, the Lawrence Fried Fishburne, before. He did get puffy at some point.
He's looking good now, though. He's looking good now.
Yeah, like he's on that show Blackish.
Yeah, he looks great.
And he's a lot thinner there than he was, or not thinner overall, but like his face is less puffy than it was even in the third Matrix movie, I think.
There's no like news, but maybe he went through something and then he conquered it. Now he's looking better.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, stress. Oh, boy, when I think of just 2 years ago.
I mean,
stress can do a lot, but yeah, he
remember on Predators? Like he was not looking good on that. I remember he was living on the island by himself. And I was like, what? Like that.
I don't know where he found that Shoney's buffet to get that body on that island.
And I'm normally super nice about movies. I never really insult character. Like we joke around about Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious 26, but like I'd never like messed around with weight or anything. But I did see that movie and I was like, how? So I mean, that was it. But he's looking great now, man. I'm proud of him. You know what? I want to know his diet.
The other thing, so Sam Neill, I don't really think it was a dad bod, to be fair. And yeah, and like you said, he was 50. And I mean, this is several years after Jurassic Park. No one was calling him young in Jurassic Park. And then for Lawrence Fishburne, wasn't he like 30?
Yeah. So I mean, he's probably, he's up in his 50s now.
I mean, but he was young. I mean, that's hell. No matter how you look at a certain age, if you go back 10 years, you're probably a thinner version of yourself. I think that they're doing okay. I think they are fine. And yes, some weight was clearly gained, and we can, if we want to pick on Sam Neill, we can just think of him in The Vow, where he's the evilest father ever.
Sam Neill?
Wasn't that The Vow?
Was that the Rachel McAdams one with Channing Tatum?
Yeah.
I was convinced that was a Nicholas Sparks movie for a long time, but it's not.
I thought it was too. I thought that's where you got it for me.
Those parents were terrible. What a bunch of jerks.
Well, those are opening listening questions. We're going to have more at the end of the pod, but we want to leave some room so that we can discuss the movie.
And boy, are we going to discuss this movie. I got to tell you, John. So we decided to do this, and I'm like, I want to do this right, because there's a lot of questions about Event Horizon. It's a bona fide cult classic. It's 20 years old. It's a movie that I want to know a lot about. So I found the Blu-ray, like on last week's podcast we were talking about. I've listened to commentary twice, watched the movie twice, listened to the behind the scenes footage with the commentary. I'm glad we had like weeks to prepare for this. I read as many articles as I could. I feel like Event Horizon, much like the ship became the people, like this movie is like part of me, which is kind of weird. It's not a good thing to be putting in your brain. I've noticed a lot more with it, so it's kind of weird to be getting it all out now. Like I'm going to be going through withdrawals. I'm going to be going through Event Horizon withdrawals after this podcast.
Yeah. And like when we did Bram Stoker Pod a couple weeks ago, like I had seen it numerous times, but not for like 15 plus years. So I was revisiting it a couple times in the week before. This is actually a movie that I've seen at least once every single year since it came out. This is like when people say, I've seen it like 20 times. No, I've actually sat down and watched this from start to finish at least 20 times, having nothing to do with this podcast. Which is kind of interesting. This is one of those movies that whenever it's on, I will go find it and start it from the beginning, or even go grab my DVD or something at the time and just start it from the beginning. Like I always really loved this movie. My cousin also was really into this movie the whole time. So yeah, this is kind of a long time coming for a lot of reasons.
And so inadvertently, I think what this film does. So Paul W.S. Anderson directed Mortal Kombat. People asked him to do X-Men. They asked him to do Alien 4. He turned those down because he wanted to do this movie. Basically, he wanted to do a ghost story on a ship because there's no way out. You can't just go to like the grocery store. But what I think this movie does really well is these aren't dumb people being put in like a dumb situation. It's smart people who are just put in a horrible situation because they're doing their job. So it's not like they're like, oh, hey, let's walk around this corridor. Let's not like when they know that it's too late, it's too late. So I think this is kind of good. Like I like the idea of this crew who it's not their fault. They got brought to do their mission. They got pulled out of their break. They didn't want to do this. And when they learn it's too late, it's too late. And there's something refreshing about that.
Yeah, it's very alien, except like but like an academic step up from working class.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. I just like that idea. Like, you see some of these movies like Alien Covenant, or like other movies where people are like, oh, hey, there's a planet. Let's go inhabit it. And you're like, no, don't go to this planet you haven't charted. Go to the planet that you have charted. Like, these people are doing their job. And everything that drives them to what, the end, it's not really their fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm going to mention Alien a few times. If someone isn't so familiar with Alien and or this movie, don't think that I'm saying that this movie is copying it. I don't think that. I think it's just an influence is present. But like in Alien, much like this movie, our crew did not actually know what they were doing in the first place. It's not just that they didn't know what they were encountering. It's that they didn't even understand what their mission was until they were already there. It was kind of the same thing in both of these, where then it gets revealed, the curtain is drawn on what's really going on. Because our crew didn't know in the Event Horizon, or in the Lewis and Clark, their ship, they did not know the purpose of their mission until they already were in hypersleep for 2 months, and then got within a week of their target.
Yeah, and basically, like Lawrence Fishburne says, someone drops the ball, we get the call. So they go in to investigate.
And I guess do
you want to do what we always do? You want to break down the movie real quick?
I was just going to offer to if you didn't want to.
Go for it.
All right, so I actually wrote this because I think that what IMDb wrote sucked. Because IMDb writes, a rescue crew investigates a spaceship that disappeared into a black hole and has now returned with someone or something new on board. What I called it was, a paramilitary crew is deployed on a dangerous, top-secret, deep space mission to rescue a ship capable of faster-than-light travel that has disappeared for 7 years, leaving only flayed corpuscles, an infernal radio transmission, and some mean, chunky, gory chili splattered on the walls. What happened to the Event Horizon and where she was all this time? Her creator, Dr. Weir, wants to know more than anything.
You wrote that?
Yeah, it's going to be in the review that's going to drop in a couple days on the site. But yeah, that was my take on it. IMDb disappointed me.
And they're also, look at this crew as basically the Coast Guard. That's what Paul Anderson wanted them to kind of be. So they're the people that go out into space and save people. So it's like Kevin Costner in The Guardian, diving into water while Snow Patrol plays. These guys are kind of like the Coast Guard of space. So kind of interesting parallel. But you know what I love about this movie? And I think explains why, here's my theory about why people are so drawn to this film. Titanic, right? Took forever to film, so it got delayed. So that meant in Paramount's schedule, there was an opening 10 months later. So from when Paramount had figured out the opening, it was 10 months. The script was written. Paul Anderson had the script. There was a lot of storyboards. But they're like, okay, you start shooting in 10 weeks. So he gets with his producer, Jeremy Bolt, who's great on the Event Horizon commentary. He gets with Jeremy Bolt. They somehow land Pinewood, which is where they do all the Harry Potters, the Bonds, Star Wars, Eyes Wide Shut. Massive, massive stages. And they have 10 weeks to build every set and cast the roles and make the costumes, which is not much time. Well, I mean, so they find the one guy in England who's willing to do it. They start building the sets. The production designer, his name is Joseph Bennett. He also did Deep Blue Sea. Woohoo! And of course they're building sets while they're working, but 10 weeks is nothing. That's like a nothing time. When I've worked on some sets, I've watched them build these things that aren't even the size of that over the course of weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, they shot the film quickly, right? But then they only had like 2 months to edit it and release it in the theaters. So Paul Anderson was 30 years old. He's editing and showing this movie to people at the same time without finished effects. So the focus groups that saw this film were seeing it without special effects. Not everything was done. So he turned in a 2 hour and 10-minute cut. It was way too extreme. Turned in another one. They still thought it was extreme. So it was his third cut that made the cinemas. And a lot of stuff didn't make the cut. So this is a movie that between 10 months went from set building to filming to reshoots to editing to releasing. I mean, that's a nothing timeline. And I think I respect this movie more now knowing it. I mean, it kicked everyone's butt. Like, the director, Paul Anderson, was working 7 days a week. And I think because of that, there's like some really kind of cheeky moments in here. They couldn't think everything through.